Good afternoon and welcome to this week's edition of Halftime Talk. I'm delighted to be joined at the table today by Demet Ozdemir, Managing Director of BGN Geneva. Demet has a long career experience in the international industry as a partner with EY for many years and now Managing Director of BGN's Geneva Trading Hub. So Demet, welcome.
Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Let's just kick right into getting to know a little bit more about BGN. BGN describes itself as one of the fastest growing energy and commodity companies. This is a big kind of given the scale of certainly growth we've seen across, particularly in Dubai these days, becoming a global energy trading hub. But as you sort of frame it, how does one quantify BGN as one of the fastest growing? What gives it that definition? You might give us some scale and reference numbers for that.
BGN is indeed a very fast growing company. And just to put into perspective to your question, we are currently operating in all continents, basically. We serve more than 500 customers operating in 120 countries. We have offices in Dubai, Geneva, Singapore, Morocco, Houston, Rotterdam, but we serve all from almost 20 different locations that are at the global scale. And
are any of those particularly bigger hubs of operation for you? Obviously, you're in Geneva, historically, the center of the trading world, the commodity trading world.
Indeed, the Geneva office has been the fastest growing hub for Geneva over the recent years. Also, since I joined the managing director of the office, I have personally observed and witnessed that growth. And in terms of number of employees, we have nearly become 10 times bigger than we were compared to in terms of number of employees compared to a couple of years ago. And on the global level, our number of employees grew 50% in the last 12 months. We are heavily investing in different directions, in different portfolios. We will probably talk about that later.
Yeah.
And also, maybe from a scaling perspective, we are currently trading around 50 million metric ton turnover in the commodities from a volume perspective. And
liquids or across?
Our majority of our products is oil and oil products as of today. And we are the largest LPG trader, and majority of our revenue is consisting of crude oil and distillates and gas oil, but we are diversifying.
Given that scale of growth in the last, as you framed it, and even in the last 12 months, the last 2-3 years since you've joined BGN, it's also coincided with a very disruptive period globally where we've seen a lot of new regulations, sanctions, tariffs, with the sanctioning of Russian crude and products and the ongoing sanctions on Iran and tariff war now between the US and China, all sorts of things to deal with as a trading company, as any company, but particularly moving commodities and oil and products around the world. And that's quite often the focus of many sanctions. With all of this tightening global regulations, perhaps you could tell us a bit about how your governance frameworks and compliance systems at BGN, what have been put in place to support this rapid growth, but particularly at this time, growth at a time of very tight global regulations.
Well said, Sean. When you operate at the global level with this fast pace of changing regulatory environment, and the uncertainty is the word. And therefore, operating at this fast-paced global level regulatory compliance or adhering to the governance is very critical also for BGN. So what we have done is, while we are inevitably a very dynamic company, we have heavily invested in our corporate and executive functions. The intention is to build a more structured organization that operates on a truly international scale. And in our organizational structure, we have a global operational matrix. So that means all the roles, independent of the geographies of the employees, we serve for global operations. And so we have a strong and clear operation structure with a strong leadership at the top, at the executive level, and the defined reporting lines and responsibilities are also in place.
I would imagine a lot of that new growth. I mean, speaking with your peer group, that may have been given the challenge of the last year from the market structure point of view, sort of plateaued a bit in hiring new traders, but there's still, it seems, your peer group are hiring in the compliance, in the governance side, in order to sort of be able to manage a lot of the challenges currently. Is that similar with BGN? Still a lot of the new hiring in that area?
That is correct. BGN invests in new traders as well. That is part of the portfolio product diversification, also from a sustainable leadership perspective that we can come to later.
When you say diversify from a product portfolio, perhaps you can tell us a bit what that means. You were before just crude oil, now your products, or what does diversification mean in that area?
We were in LPG, crude oil, distillates, gas oil, basil, but recently we have also invested in LNG. So we have new traders for LNG and also SAF products, biodiesel products from a sustainable point of view. And also we are now going into metals. So these sort of portfolio and product diversification I was referring to. And to answer to your earlier question,
Please.
in addition to the traders investment from a trader's perspective, we have been investing in our corporate functions. That's also part of my role, to oversee the corporate functions to be established properly and to recruit the right people with the right skill set.
And given that corporate function and that growth, and obviously, as you said earlier, your BGN is spread across the world, serving all four continents. We've seen recently a lot of migration in your peer group from Geneva to Dubai or Singapore. That Dubai is sort of emerging as the latest global hub for trading. What is BGN's view on that? Is that similar for you, or how do you assess the rise of Dubai as a global energy trading hub?
Our fastest growing office is Geneva for BGN. We are growing our Dubai office also, so we are recruiting at all levels, traders, operators, and other functions in Dubai. But our fastest growing hub is Geneva. And more importantly, the senior level of corporate functions are based in Geneva. Just to name, head of risk, head of compliance, head of HR, myself, head of finance, head of ESG are based in Geneva.
Interesting.
So it's a bit maybe different than the other traders.
Well, it's interesting as to where each one, I mean, obviously, the granular level, you're probably not too dissimilar, I would think, in a lot of leadership positions still staying in Geneva or London, and what is emerging in Dubai on a variety of level, different desks, different products, but ultimately the scale of what's happening here, where I sit in Dubai, does appear to be emerging, but yet to be on a level clearly with Geneva or Singapore. I don't think anybody would be misconstruing that. Looking at your particular growth, BGN, And given metals, you've recently announced partnerships in the DRC, which is one of the biggest metal centers, mining and source of in the world. Operating in emerging markets can involve a lot of political and regulatory complications, no doubt. And we're seeing, as you say, and again, in similar move into metals by many in your peer group and some long established firms only getting into metals for the first time. And so clearly a space of growth given the opportunities in mobility and batteries and all of the commodities needed for that space. How does BGN kind of ensure the transparency and strong governance while emerging into countries like the DRC? How is that experience? How is that synergy going?
Whatever country you operate in, this goes back to the question or the discussion of governance and compliance. So it's a matter of combination of strict adherence to the BGN's code of conduct that we have established as the first thing in, and then risk management expertise we have built in, and then rigorous compliance procedures we enable internally. That's all to meet and to comply the highest standards, whatever jurisdiction we operate in, and also we have a compliance in BGN, which is, we call it as simply battle-tested compliance. BGN's exist first and enter last policy that ensures us to lead with the integrity, prioritize the transparency in the risk management and the compliance at all levels. And maybe while I mentioned the...
When you see... Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to
No,
mention,
go ahead.
or maybe if you want me to deep dive into a couple of things that I just mentioned. Code of conduct I mentioned about, that's the policy we have established or introduced in the first place, and it's all about the shared values we have: honesty, respect, and professionalism together with the responsibility. And then we have also obviously operational policies and procedures in place that goes and that keeps all the functions together and accountable. That includes like the credit policy, risk policy, liquidity policy, KYC, KYT, know your client, shipping, and also from a
which of course, I
compliance...
suppose, as you mentioned earlier, all of the heads of all of the different divisions still together in Geneva must allow for that more efficient coordination across those compliance issues.
Yes, and yet we have different team members in every jurisdiction, by the way. We have team members in Singapore, Dubai, and his back office also in Istanbul, and sometimes in Netherlands as well. But yes, while the senior team is together, that enables my role and also their role a bit easier from a proximity perspective to sit together in face-to-face. Yet still, thanks to the teams and everything, the internet.
I mean, you mentioned earlier that obviously you're looking to apply these standards in the same, whatever the jurisdiction, and obviously different jurisdictions have slightly different governance and different rules. But what do you think with a country like the DRC and clearly this big push into metals across the industry, across the world? We're seeing those challenges, rare earths becoming, the news of the day, really every day these days. These are subjects that you never thought you'd see on the front page of newspapers, but now they're at the top of every agenda. I'm wondering, how do you think companies like BGN and your peer group, many headquartered in Geneva, can play a role in setting benchmarks for best practice in governance and regulatory compliance, particularly in the energy sector, given that is your original sort of starting point, now getting into metals and other areas, but oil being a big, and LPG you're a big leader in. what role and responsibility perhaps does a company like BGN have in setting standards in some of the markets you're working in?
I would say lead by example. So definitely establishing the policies, procedures in place and leading and not only establishing them, but also adhering to them on daily basis, on an operational level is critical. And more importantly is how the other how all the functions work together. So another example of how we operate also as part of the example is we have established our committees. So these committees are that we have established, just to name some, like credit committee, ESG committee, risk committee, compliance committee. These committees are consisting of people from different functions, from different departments. And these are not just discussion forums. These are the places we take decisions, and these committees report to the senior management and the board. So this is how we operate as a corporate group, even though you are operating in different jurisdictions. And this and despite the fact that trading industry is not a regulatory industry, we need to mention that we operate, or this industry operates together with the financial partners. These are the financial institutions and banks. And currently, BGN is working over 30 international banks who are prominent in their fields. And as we all know, banks are heavily regulated institutions. And BGN passing by the due diligence and the compliance procedures for the onboarding and also working with all these different banks, but also giving the trust, mutual trust.
And given that, I mean, this is a very particular, again, coming back to the earlier point or question, that at this time when all of you, your banking client or partners, as you say, 30 banks, obviously every trading house needs deep relationships with the whole cross section of regional and international banks. How does it manage at this time the changing landscape? Literally every day there can be a new tariff announcement, new sanctions in a different geography. Does that mean these teams are meeting all the time, or the correspondence with the banks on these issues are much more involved on a daily basis than maybe before? How has it changed the operational aspect of these areas?
For sure, with this dynamic changing pace or uncertainty at the global level, which has an impact on our company and our industry, working together makes a lot of difference. So none of the functions can work on silo basis. Compliance cannot sit in one corner and have the market intelligence and share only. But it is a continuous working together. This is what we call the culture. This is the compliance culture. This is the governance culture every company needs to build in. So when the finance teams are facing the banks, for example, I'm being part of the bank conversations also. That's just an example
Are the
that
banks
I
being more
personally do.
demanding? Are the banks being more demanding in order to limit their exposure given the scale of sanctions and tariffs around the world?
Banks have always been demanding because they have their regulatory policies and environments. They have to obey to their rules. And when BGN grows further, we are already commercially proven company, and now we are also even boosting our different corporate functions, different governance policies in place. We are giving even more comfort and trust to the banks. So in that sense, we really work together with our partners as well. That goes to our counterparties parts to at all level, not only the customers, but also the banks as well. We have a very good and close and trust relationship with our counterparts.
I want to just finish up with the question around BGN. You mentioned earlier is a market leader in transition fuels in LPG. Which are 2 billion people in the world still relying on biomass for domestic fuel for cooking and heating. It's a huge LPG business in the world and a huge leader as BGN is in that space. But what does leadership mean for you and for BGN in terms of ESG performance? Given we're seeing ESG come under some sort of, I don't know if attack is the right word, but certainly being pushed a little bit to the sides but in certain political environments. What does leadership in this space mean for you in terms of ESG?
When we say BGN is a leader in transition fuels, we mean we are actively contributing to the energy transition. So this is not just through words, but through action as well. So as just discussed, we are committed to the sustainability, purposeful investing, partnership, and obviously innovation goes together with that. And with this fast track in terms of our diversification in our portfolio with lower carbon to transitional fuels, LNG, biofuels, SAF, now metals is another example. And in terms of other than the trading, also in terms of the ESG perspective, we are also focusing on understanding and managing the environmental and social impact, obviously. So last year we completed our double materiality assessment. We identified the topics that are most relevant to our business, such as climate change and governance, and the talent, the workforce we work with. And we have committed to report transparently in terms of our progress, how we operate. We did also have a plan, and we are committed to our plan to have a target of reducing our scope 1 and 2 emissions by 40% by 2030, by the end of the year.
Wow, that's
And
only around the corner.
yes, 5 years is just nothing in that sense. So again, last year we have worked on our ESG agenda, and we have developed our first ever ESG journey report by the end of 2024. So we summarize our position as of the date, and we are committed in our action items. And not to
So there's
mention
no backing
shipping.
away from this commitment to ESG, even though it does appear the wider upstream industry, for example, seems to be sort of, putting aside their transition commitments.
Well, BGN is a commodity trading company, so we don't have assets under that perspective, but yet shipping is an important area for us. And we are aligning our shipping operations with IMO, International Maritime
It's a big
Organization.
week for the IMO on that point.
Exactly. And EU decarbonization regulations, that is also important. So we are following and improving our emissions management around that, and trying to be compliant around that to meet our ambitions.
Well,
So it
Demet,
is
it's
about
been
driving the progress around that.
and sustaining the commitment in a way which we're seeing at this time. Some companies sort of back away from the kind of follow through and commitment to ESG, and it's great to see and hear that BGN stays the course. And I think as a world leader in LPG, that's a critical place of contribution. We could talk forever, Demet, but we must wrap up. It's been an honor to have you on this week's edition of Halftime Talk. Demet Ozdemir, Managing Director of BGN Geneva, thank you so much.
Thank you so much to Sean. Thank you so much to Gulf Intelligence for having me. All the best.
Pleasure.